Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I said I might do an update if I could find the time, and lo and behold, carved out a little bit of time just to kind of give an update on how things are going in the transfer window. It's I think you've probably already seen one of the main people we've been speaking about, Antonio Nusa. Looks like a Nusa no-go right now, unless something remarkable happens over the coming hours. Looks like he is heading to Brentford. It's a really interesting one, this one. It's one where I know and have seen already that some people on social media are getting very down about it. Do you know what? It's one of those where, yes, of course, he's a talented young player, but having kind of gone into the reasons behind it and spoken to various people about it, I understand his logic and his team's logic, as in the people around him. Essentially, to kind of summarise, so Spurs have had held talks with Club Brugge about the potential of signing Antonio Nusa, who is 18 years old, and Brentford also have shown an interest and now have made their move. What he's decided is that essentially at Brentford he can see, I guess, a clearer and quicker path to regular starts and football. And that's something that Spurs just weren't able to really offer him at this moment in time. And look, I know the initial reaction, I've seen lots of it, people saying, he's better than what we've got now. How can he be any worse than what we've got? It's just the way that football fandom across all clubs works. I completely understand it. He is a very exciting player. I really want to stress that this is not me about to launch into I'm glad we didn't get him kind of thing, because it's not that at all. He's a very talented young player who could be potentially a superstar. However, right now, he's a very, very raw 18-year-old player who is not starting many games for Club Brugge in the Belgian league. I looked at his stats. He's 6 of the 16 league matches this season that he's appeared in. Last season, he started 7 of the 19 matches he appeared in, and all 4 of the Champions League games we spoke about. Obviously, last season he set the record as the youngest ever Champions League goal scorer on his debut. Every one of those appearances from the bench. So this is a very young man who is not starting matches in the Belgian league, not starting many matches in the Belgian league. So the feeling with him and among his camp was that maybe a step to a bigger club like a Tottenham, a top 6 club, because don't forget, Chelsea, Liverpool and Arsenal have all shown interest in him in recent months as well, actually over the last year. But I think the feeling was that if he made that jump to a bigger club like that too soon, he could end up kind of getting a bit lost in it all. And look, to be fair, we've seen that at Spurs. Jack Clarke is a great example of someone that's kind of an 18-year-old that came to the club and has gone elsewhere to rebuild his career. You can argue with Brian Hill. Brian Hill has not worked out for him as he hoped, and he was a player who was considered probably one of the best young talents in Spain when he joined. So I can understand that logic. Yes, of course, you can look at the likes of Udogie and Sarr as terrific examples of the other way and how it's worked brilliantly at Spurs. But what I would say is that Udogie was starting every single match for Udinese when Spurs signed him, and then in the loan back as well. Pat Matar pretty much started 75% of the games for Metz last season. These are guys that are playing in sorry to say this to the Belgian league, but higher level leagues or perceived to be higher level leagues, and they're playing every single match, pretty much starting every single game. And look, again, this is not to do him down at all, Nusa, because he is clearly an exceptional young talent, but just is at a slightly different stage in his development. So Brentford have come in and been able to say, and also don't kind of overlook the fact that they've got quite a kind of a Nordic base there in terms of players as well. They've got other Norwegian players that he can kind of settle in with. He will obviously go back to Club Brugge again and come back next season to them. Whereas with Spurs, I think I might have said this in the last video, there was a feeling among those I'd spoken to in Belgium and also in Norway that he might not have even been ready for next season for Spurs. It might have been a case they might have had to loan him out again to another club. And I've seen people saying, oh, well, why didn't Spurs just loan him out to Brentford or something like that? There's this ideal world how we would all love it, but you can't make a player do what, kind of what you want them to do. And also, if I'm a player, do I want to go to a club maybe where I am going to constantly be loaned out, or do I want to go to the club where that club says, no, we really want you, and we see you straight in our Premier League team maybe next season, or at least in the squad. And I guess that's the difference. It's a little bit like, because I've seen some people saying, oh, he's lacking ambition. No, not at all. It's a bit like Radu Dragusin. I don't know why I got a bit excited about the Radu. Sound like the Count from Sesame Street. Radu Dragusin. He, obviously, there was some people maybe would say, oh, he showed no ambition. Why didn't he go to Bayern Munich when they came in? But he kind of saw a clearer pathway at Spurs. He saw someone where he's going to play more football, potentially could start, this week in one of these two games. So, do you know what? It's one of those where, yes, I'm very disappointed, of course, because like you and everyone probably, I've been poring over stuff about him, reading about him, watching the compilation videos, because I've got to admit, I don't watch a lot of the Belgian League, the Jupiler Pro League. Jupiler Pro League. So I don't see much of him other than Champions League appearances last season, and then bits of those. I wouldn't say fastidiously watched every single minute he played in those either. So obviously, let's be honest, the bulk of us are going off kind of bits and pieces. And do you know what? I think it's actually quite refreshing, as much as I would have liked to see sign for Spurs, to actually see someone with people around him that are guiding him in the right way. Having spoken to so many kind of agents and people around players, you get a sense that sometimes, not saying all the time, there is a desire to drive their player towards the biggest club possible. Presumably, I don't know whether that's money-based or whether status-based or it looks better, I don't know. But there is maybe that desire to do that. So to actually have a player where they've got so many of Europe's top sides looking at him, you've got someone like Spurs that have shown even more of an interest and have gone to the club, and then to pick Brentford, and again, that's not to disrespect Brentford in any way, they're doing a terrific job. Brilliant manager, Thomas Frank. A really big fan of Thomas Frank and the work he's doing there. And I think just for them to see that and think, no, actually, at this point in time, that's the right fit for him. A real Scandinavian feel to that club as well. I can't really complain about it too much. And yes, I know, like I've seen some people say, you could have lied to him. We could have told him you'd play and then signed him and then said, ha ha ha. You can't really do that. It's just not how it works at all. But yeah, so I don't know whether we'll end up seeing that confirmed while I'm doing this, or whether it will just be after, or even tomorrow, I don't know. But yeah, it looks like Nusa is heading to Fulham. I'd love there to be a late twist, and he suddenly goes to Tottenham, but feels like that's going. And I should say again, I'm talking about the rawness of him and how kind of much developing and progress he's meant to be doing. The reports from Belgium on the fee, I did say I thought they wanted north of 30 million, and it looks like the deal is going to be 37 million euros, which is 31.5 million pounds. Plus bonuses, and then on top of that, a 12.5% sell-on clause. So that is, that's a big signing for Brentford. So I can understand why they've kind of would give him more assurances than Tottenham can, because if you're going to spend that money, that's a player that you're kind of got very high, quick hopes for as well, especially to loan him back as well. Like I say, he's barely had double figures in terms of starts to his name in the Belgian league over recent seasons. Yeah, he's very young, so that's the reason for that. But still, I've said before, making an impact on the international stage as well. Although I'm trying to think of a fair few of those. He's only played 4 times. Whether some of those or the bulk of those were bench appearances, maybe. But that's a lot of money. But ultimately, from what I've been told, there's no suggestion that Spurs wouldn't have, had an issue with the money side of things, the fee side of things. I think they just got the sense from the player and his camp during talks that, they felt that Brentford was the better move for his development right now. And yeah, it's one of those we can kind of wail and oh, that's interesting. apparently there's 4 other clubs had made offers as well for him, and he picked Brentford. So maybe starting off at £25.6 million, but could rise to 31.5 with add-ons and the sell-on clause as well. So yeah, it's a lot of money. Hey, next season we could all be crying about the fact of how brilliant he is, and he may have made an incredibly sudden impact on the Premier League stage, and fair play to him. I hope he does for him, but doesn't look like it's going to be at Tottenham. And look, I've seen also some people suggesting that Spurs dragged this out, that's why Brentford were able to come in. The whole dragging deals out thing, having again speaking to many people involved in deals, whether it's around players or at clubs, it's a kind of a bit of a fallacy. That it does happen in some situations, definitely. The one I'll always use because it's the one that scarred me the most, Aston Villa and Jack Grealish. Spurs messed around over a fee they knew right from the start, didn't get it done, and they waited so long that Villa got an injection of cash into the club and didn't need to sell Jack Grealish anymore. So yes, definitely it can happen, and I'm not saying that Spurs don't drag out deals, especially when they know players are interested, to try and get the best fee. I'm not saying that, but it's a little bit more of a fallacy that other clubs come in there and just da-da, kind of jump in. I don't know why they make that noise, but I think that dreaded word that journalists will often use, that I don't think fans really like, monitored. They're monitoring a player. And that is exactly what it is. Clubs will monitor players that they've got an interest in, and they'll watch and they'll see if someone else comes in, they'll be, okay, let's see what they do with the fee and how close they get to an agreement of the fee. And if they sense at that club, they'll be asking that agent for regular updates. Of course they will. That's the way it works. And as soon as anything comes close, that's when they'll make their play. And it doesn't always work for them, as we saw with Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich were very much keeping an eye on the situation. When in there, the player didn't go for it. But yeah, this kind of idea, I think, that suddenly it opens a door for other clubs. It doesn't. I mean, yeah, you could argue perhaps the player might be worried that, maybe do they really want me that much? Maybe I'll go elsewhere and I'll listen to them. It can occasionally happen, I suppose, like that. Or if the club coming in just offers the biggest ridiculous salary. But that can happen at any point in the deal because they're monitoring it. And we saw that with Bayern, offered big money to drag us in, but he decided to still come to Spurs. So yeah, it's not. We're not going to see Antonio Nusa coming to Tottenham Hotspur, unfortunately, unless there is a late twist. But it doesn't look to be the case, unfortunately. So where does that leave Tottenham? The feeling that I kind of can gather within the club is that they'll still keeping an eye out for late deals. But if that were to be it for incomings, there wouldn't be any kind of wailing or distress because, and Postecoglou's made this pretty clear in the press conferences, he's happy with what they've done because they went early, got 2 priority signings through the door, got that centre-back that he desperately wanted, and a very good one at that, and they got a very good, experienced player who can play across the front line in Timo Werner. So, yeah, I don't think you need to worry too much about whether, Ange Postecoglou would be furious. And I do wonder, and we've said this before, I've spoken about this before, I do wonder whether had Werner and Dragusin come at the end of the window, whether people would be like, wow, what an incredible window. That's great. But because they came early and Spurs were actually prepared, we've had this long period of going, what's next? I want more. It's very weird the way it kind of all works. It's kind of perception, I guess. And then the way that, we got so excited by that. And I was looking down the players that clubs have signed. Spurs have had a stronger, busier window than most of the clubs in the Premier League, if not all of them. They've done 2 big deals for players that come straight into their first team squad and will challenge for first team places. West Ham, Calvin Phillips. Other than that, there's a lot of deals mainly for players that have either gone back out on loan or they've recalled players from loan. And also, we cannot do down the fact that Spurs have got rid of so many players out the door. Big players, big money that weren't featuring, Lloris, Dyer, Perisic have headed out there, and loan players headed back out like Reguilon and Spence. There's been it's been incredibly busy. It's probably been the busiest January transfer window I can remember at Spurs. But I get it. We all kind of like, well, now what? I want more. But I do think if the window's suddenly shut now, I think Postecoglou will be like, okay, cool. Yeah, we've got a squad now that's absolutely fine for the rest of the 17 matches. Because this is the thing. There are no other games to play other than these 17 Premier League matches. Personally, if you ask me, Alistair Gould, what would you like? What would in my ideal world, I'd probably like another number 9 to provide a bit of competition for Richarlison. But I'm also very aware that you've got Son, you've got Richarlison. Velis did a video on social media of him going back doing running on a Hotspur way training pitches. So hopefully he's heading in the right direction. So for 17 matches, yes, there could be a huge injury crisis. But when you've got Richarlison and Son could play through the middle, and then you've got Johnson and Werner can play through the middle as well. I kind of can understand the logic behind if there's nothing really in the market in January, your summer's a much better time to look for new number 9 deals. Obviously, there's still the midfield suggestion. I know that you can rule out until that window closes Conor Gallagher, purely because of the Chelsea scenario and what their issues with financial fair play. Everything there seems to point towards him not moving in terms of he wants to stay, Poch wants him to stay. He's their captain right now. He's playing every minute pretty much. But yeah, I think this is the thing. Clubs are so petrified right now about breaching these financial fair play rules that genuinely you could see a panic sale towards the end of this window. Whoever it may be, I'm not saying to Spurs, it could be to anyone. I think you will probably see a big departure from someone because they've seen what's happened to other clubs and they're like, crikey, if we get a massive fine and however 10 points or whatever, we could be in real trouble here. And there's a lot of people kind of, I guess, looking to get these players out the door. With Aston Villa as another example, that's another club that got some. Apparently, they've got to kind of get a certain amount off of their books as well. And it's interesting because Spurs have had an interest in Jacob Ramsey for a little while. It's kind of one of those that I've known this for a little while, but it's kind of like, what's even the point of a kind of reporting? Because Villa are never going to let him go. He's a player that is a terrific young player. You don't sell him unless it's for incredible money. And I saw the stuff today. It was quite interesting. And I think it was David Ornstein saying, Spurs are still interested. Bayern Munich, I think Newcastle as well with another club. And the reason is that it's suddenly kind of come into the news is because apparently, Villa have a certain amount of money they have to get off their books by June. I'm not sure if I wrote it down here. No, I didn't write it down. But it's to stay compliant with the profit and sustainability rules. And this is just playing this massive thing. There's talk that maybe in the summer they might be relaxed slightly. But suddenly players like that, 22-year-old versatile, terrific talent, there's talk that it would still cost like 50, 60 million if you're going to get him out of Villa. And Unai Emery's been talking about him today. Seems to have zero interest in letting him go. He's had a bit of a difficult season in terms of injuries. Had a foot injury, hamstring injury in recent weeks as well. So he hasn't played as much football as he would like. But he's a terrific, terrific young player. And you can see the type, can't you? Conor Gallagher as well. Is he 23? Jacob Ramsey's 22. Definitely, I think there'll be a focus towards getting some homegrown players in. Probably going to be in the summer. But definitely, you can see, having lost some homegrown players in recent years, like Kane, Winks, Spence. Dyer doesn't count, obviously, because he's that Portuguese kind of upbringing. Joe Rodon will be another one when he kind of presumably moves on in the summer to, you'd think, Leeds, but it could be a proper scramble for him. I'm still intrigued to see whether Leeds try to do a deal before the end of this window, even though they don't know if they're going to be in the Premier League or not. So, Jacob Ramsey stuff is interesting, and yeah, when I saw the stuff today, I was a bit like, oh yeah, no, he's because he's part of the same group. He's repped by that also have. I remember these. There's so many different agencies. Remember who they have: Brennan Johnson, Troy Parrott, Ryan Sessegnon, another player that Spurs have been interested in recently. It's gone out of my head. I can't remember. I think it was one of the young players. I think it was Jonathan Rowe. Maybe Jonathan Rowe at Norwich as well. They've got a decent presence at Spurs. Not as strong as base, CAA base, but they definitely have a strong presence kind of growing at Tottenham. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That name, funny enough, just literally someone's messaged me that as well. It's another name that's Spurs been linked with for a while. The young lad from Copenhagen. What's his name again? Oh, that's it. Rooney. Oh, I'm never going to be able to pronounce that. Rooney Bardghji. We'll call him Rooney. I have no idea how you pronounce that. So please, anyone from Denmark, please let me know exactly how you pronounce that in case that ever becomes anything more than that. But like I said, yeah, keep an eye on a. If there is going to be a deal, I do wonder whether it's more likely to be a potential young player loan back kind of deal, like a Nusa type. I've said it before about the young players they've looked at in the Championship this season. Just some of them, like Jonathan Rowe, like Hayden Hackney, like Adam Wharton. Players like that maybe they think, okay, we secure them for the future now, especially as the Nusa deal hasn't gone through. Or whether they just think, well, let's kind of call it there. Yeah, we look to the summer and we plan, for then. But I'm intrigued to see if there was going to be a sudden big move. Again, it is the window of opportunity. It is. Was it Steve Hitchens said that in the Amazon All or Nothing documentary? I think that was what he said in that. You never know. You never know what you're going to get. As part of the midfield thing, though, of course, Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, that's another part of it. He would have to head out the door, you'd think, for something to happen. And interestingly, it was quite the least likely source of information on him. I saw his lawyer had been speaking to Sky Germany and saying that he will stay at Spurs until the end of the season. Sky Sports Deutschland today, his lawyer Lars Hallgren said, despite rumours and noise, the player always kept focusing on helping the team, coaches and Tottenham. The player never asked to leave now. He's very ambitious for Tottenham and Denmark, continuing to keep improving himself like he did all his career. He's a strong character and player. His only focus is Tottenham to finish the season well and to help as much as possible. Pierre always liked challenges. So yeah, I think the thing with Spurs is they're not looking to loan Hojbjerg out really. They would prefer a permanent deal because he's only got 18 months left in his contract. So it would have to be someone, like I said before, that has got the money to make that happen, even a loan with an obligation. So those who maybe have come forward thus far have probably not caught the eye of the club or the player. So I do wonder whether the Hojbjerg situation makes a midfield move difficult with that respect in that respect as well, or whether Spurs just think, okay, well, this is our last chance. We need to sign this player before this other club do, and then we'll have him for the summer, and then Hojbjerg goes in the summer, perhaps. I don't know. It just feels like Hojbjerg is almost a bit of a blocker on it all. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see what happens with those type of ones. But like I say, 17 games left. I think the squad's decent enough for it. I do. When you're playing, other than this week and another week later on in the season, mostly one game a week. Hopefully the injury crisis is behind us now. I think it's a squad that's strong enough to deal with that, hopefully now. I'm going to see how many times I can say hopefully now. I wonder whether we'll ever get to a situation where it's an entirely fully fit squad. That would be incredible. But like I say, I mean, just very quickly going through the squad, looking at it, goalkeeper, obviously, you've got, technically you've got 4 first-team goalkeepers because they've got to really still decide on what's happening with Alfie Whiteman and Brandon Austin. You've got left backs. You've got Udogie, Davies, and Sessegnon at the moment. Centre backs. You've obviously got I've forgotten all their names. Romero, Van der Ven, Dragoshin, with Emerson able to play there, Ben Davies able to play there, and Alfie Dorrington as the young backup. Right back, you've got Porro and Emerson. Midfield, you've got a million number sixes. You've got Basuma about to come back. Skip can play there. Hojbjerg can play there. Bentancur can play there. The number 8 roles, you've got Maddison, Lo Celso when he's back. Kulusevski can play there. On the other side, you've got Sarr can play there. And I feel like I'm going to forget someone there. And obviously everyone else can also play in those roles on the right too. That's a lot of midfielders when you actually kind of think about it all. And then that front three, and I'm kind of just going to say them all as one block because all of them can pretty much play across it. So, you've got Son, you've got Richarlison, you've got Johnson, you've got, as I said, Kulusevski, you've got Solomon coming back, you've got Werner, you've got Brian Hill, you've got Jamie Donnelly. Once he's comes back from this little hamstring issue that he's got, hopefully should be back within the next week. You've got them as well. Am I missing someone really obvious? Have I said Sonny? I hope I've said Sonny. There's loads. There are a lot of players. And I can kind of see why on the surface someone like Nusa looks at that and just goes, like, where am I in that pecking order? A player that's only started 6 games in the Belgian league this season. Where am I? Am I going to get in there ahead of Sonny? Am I going to get in there ahead of, the player you've just bought in Timo Werner, who sounds like the way he's talking and the way the club are talking, is hopefully going to be a long-term player at Tottenham, not just here for the loan. I mean, 15.5 million, let's be honest, you probably, even if he has just an average season, you're probably paying that because you can get more than that for him next season or in the summer. I don't think you could sell him straight away in the summer. I don't think that would work. But yeah, it's suddenly a busy squad. It goes from being a squad with very few people in it to being a squad with a lot of options for Postecoglou. I'm not saying it perfectly fits the Postecoglou way, and that will be the process will continue in the summer window, but it's probably enough squad depth there that, I'm not going to cry myself to sleep if the window does shut without another incoming player. But this financial fair play stuff is fascinating. I think it was Sammy Motbell in the Mail today had written a story that there's a lot of clubs who have agreed new contracts with players, but they're so fearful of enacting those new deals now and having it on this set of financial books this season's that they're actually said to the players, we'll hold these onto the summer after that, and then we'll backdate you the pay and we'll pay you from the summer, which is, incredible. And it shows you, with Spurs have handed out new deals to Sarr and Doggy this season, that hopefully they're in a position where that it's not going to impact them as much. I'm just going to have a little check, as I always do, for the old company's house thing that I do. See whether Spurs, nope, still haven't, nothing to do with that £50 million. People always ask me about that, so I'll try and do a latest one. In terms of further outgoings, I think I've said a couple of them there. Brian Hill, obviously. Southampton agreed a loan deal to sign David Brooks from Bournemouth. Do you remember when he was like the massive next thing? Spurs seriously looked at him back in the day. Fascinating. I'm going to say fascinating. I've got loads of words I'm repeating at the moment. I'm getting old and I'm just saying words over and over and over again. So Brian Hill, like I said before, he's not desperate to leave Spurs. He's very happy at Spurs. Got a lovely kind of Spanish-speaking friendship kind of group around him. He's very settled, but he's just not playing football. So despite whether he wants to go or not, I do wonder whether if a good deal comes in towards the end of the window, whether he just thinks, do you know what? To play for the last 6 months of the season, 4 or 5 months of the season, why not? Spurs, though, again, would you do another loan deal or would you do a permanent deal? You'd probably want a permanent deal at this point, as sad as it is, because I really want to see him succeed and he's a very talented young man. But again, a bit like Nusa, where does he get in that team? So let's see what happens with Brian Hill. The other one would be, of course, Ryan Sessegnon. It's just the fact of pretty much Ben Davies coming back from injury when he has. It's kind of opened that window now, I think, for Sess, if he's fit enough to do it and get out there. You would think, even in a cynical way for Spurs, just a loan would be fine for him because you're going to bump up his value if you wanted to move him on in the summer. And he was due to head off last summer, whether that ended up being on loan or not. But could be a good kind of move for all parties if he can get something, because you struggle to see where he's going to fit in and get game time when everyone's fit at Spurs. But again, do you plan in case you have injuries? I guess that's the other issue. I think that's kind of it. I mean, Alejo Velis, you could loan him out to get a bit of experience if you felt that Sonny and Richarlison were enough, but it just kind of felt like towards the end of, before he got that injury, that knee injury, he looked like he was getting more and more little minutes here and there. So maybe you let him settle in and think about that in the summer. And then you're looking at younger players. Judson Bell is one that I keep hearing that the club are keen to get him a loan move, but nothing happening on that yet. Hopefully one will be found. It's kind of a win-win situation with Jude, because if he gets a loan, brilliant. He gets first-team experience somewhere, and that will really kind of help improve him. If he doesn't, probably help Spurs win the Under-21s league, because he's been terrific, along with, Will Lancashire is another one that maybe, if they get a loan interest in him, they let him out. He's got a hat-trick at the weekend. It's got a lovely... I think they're playing again tomorrow night, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get to it, unfortunately. Niall John, another potential one. Maybe he gets a deal if someone comes in. Iago Santiago, again, it's all about the interest. It's one of these ones where we can say, get him out on loan. But clubs have got to kind of show that interest in getting them to their teams. And maybe Spurs would probably not ask for much in wages, if anything, just to get them out there on loan. But it's a gamble. It's a gamble taking on players that have never played first-team football. It always is going to be. So, see what happens with them. And like I said, the goalkeepers, Brandon Austin, Alfie Whiteman. I think maybe much on that depends on whether Brandon Austin gets a new contract or not. We'll see. Talking of transfers, Jack Clarke, obviously not at Spurs anymore, but Lazio shown a big interest in him. I think they've had a bid rejected for him. Sunderland don't seem keen to sell this window, which is understandable. When you're this late in the window, you're going to, it's very late to try and replace a player that's been so important for them like Jack has. A deal that was being spoken about for Lazio is between 10 and 15 million. I think Sunderland are probably looking for a little bit more than that. I would imagine he'll go in the summer, more likely this window. You never know, but more likely to be this summer. The reason I'm mentioning Jack Clarke is, you might remember me saying in a previous video that Spurs, when they sold him, although they only sold him for £750,000, they did include a sell-on clause of 25%. So if he does go anywhere, they'll get a fair whack of money back. I don't think they're going to make a profit on him, because I think they signed him, I think the end figure was about 8-9 million or something for that. I think there was a little bit more in add-ons, which I can't imagine were triggered. But yeah, we'll... I mean, it's one of those where Sunderland, if they know they've got to pay 25% to Spurs, they are going to look for a bigger fee naturally. So yeah, we'll see what maybe that brings Spurs in the summer. What else was I going to talk about? Oh yeah, I don't know if we'd spoken about this before, but there was some suggestions in Melbourne about Spurs going there this summer. It may not be this summer. It could potentially be a post-season friendly, which I'm sure will go down very well with the players after a long season. It's not saying it's definite. From what I understand, Spurs are exploring the possibility of a post-season trip somewhere, and that is one of the options. We'll see what happens with that. It's money spinning. That's what it is. It's great for the fans. The fans over there, having only been to Melbourne recently myself, it's an amazing place, and there's a big Ange fever there, of course, all the murals to him, and it's where he used to work, of course, and where he grew up. Yeah, not so great for the players, I'd imagine, especially as some of them will go off the Euros and the Copa America. Some of them will be just international games that they've got, a couple of them. It's probably the last thing they want. They probably want to have a little break and a holiday rather than travelling to the other side of the world. But it's the modern day game, and you've got these commitments and earning, I guess, money for the club. And hey, I guess it all goes towards transfer funds for the summer. so I can't moan about it too much. But yeah, keep an eye on that, whether that does become a thing, whether that happens or not. That would be very cool. I don't know whether I'd get to go there or not. That would be amazing to go back to Melbourne. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens if it even comes to pass. Quick loan roundup. I did promise I was going to do one of those in a previous video, so I'll do a quick one as there's been a few games played this weekend with players. Jed Spence, another start for Genoa, playing as a left wing back, but he was taken off at half time for them. In there, they won 2-1 at home against Lecce. There was a reason. It was tactical. I got a quote here. Genoa boss Alberto Gilardino, not Gilardino. He was a good player, wasn't he, Gilardino? He said both Spence and Thorsby, who was the other midfielder that was taken off, it was a double change at half time. Both Spence and Thorsby were not changed because they were working badly, but it was my desire to change tactically. Spence has great leg quality. I'd love to have great leg quality. Has great leg quality, and when he has the chance to attack a space, he must do it with venom and speed. It takes patience and calm to this player who has great qualities. Thorsby is a great professional. They weren't doing badly, but it was a tactical change. So yeah, that's an interesting one. We'll see how Jed responds to that. There's a lot of compliments in there as well. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether he takes that on board and gets stronger because of it, or takes it the other way, which sometimes young players do. We'll see. Other players, Joe Roden and Ashley Phillips, I think I mentioned in the last video, played each other in the FA Cup 4th round. Leeds against Plymouth. It was 1-1, so it'll be a replay. Alfie Devine couldn't play for Plymouth because he'd already played for Port Vale in a previous round. Eric Dyer played the full game as Bayern won 3-2 at Augsburg, Jaffet's old club, which he never played for. He also, Dyer, replaced the injured Upamecano at half-time in the previous game, a 1-0 win against Union Berlin at home. So Eric Dyer has a 100% record when playing for Bayern Munich. He's won both of his matches. He's gone straight in there. And it doesn't make you wonder whether Radu Dragishin is looking at it going, no, I would have played. Because, fair play to Eric Dyer. It'd be interesting to see. I think there's a certain amount of appearances maybe that he's got to play, and then Bayern, he becomes a Bayern player for next season as well. He must be getting on the way to that if he's already played 2 games for them. Best of luck to him. He's a great servant for Spurs over many years. Troy Parrott, another 90 minutes for him. Excelsior Rotterdam drew 1-1 at home to Utrecht. Jaffet Tanganga played the full 90 for Millwall as they drew 1-1 with Preston. Such a shame. He was getting loads of praise. I was looking at some of the local journalists kind of reporting on the game, and I think he'd played a part maybe in their goal, but just generally had been really kind of showing an assured touch, bit of pace, and then unfortunately gave the ball away, which led to their goal. Their equaliser. So, from what I read about the game, I haven't actually seen the clip yet. There were more players behind it, just kind of watched on as it happened. But unfortunately, I think he came out into midfield and lost the ball. Unfortunate kind of thing for him. Tongi, he's been on the bench a few times for Galatasaray recent weeks. Got an assist the weekend before last. I think he was set to play tonight for them against Gaziantep. Sergio Reguilon hasn't had a game this weekend for Brentford, and presumably I don't think he's allowed to play against Spurs in midweek. We'll see what happens with him in his next game. Matthew Craig, another one to come off at half-time. Doncaster Rovers were having a bit of a mare against... who were they playing? Stockport, I've written it down. The leaders of League 2. They were 3-0 down at half-time. He was one of 4 players taken off at half-time. They lost 5-1 in the end. Josh Keeley continues to play for Barnet, getting great experience there. Played as they lost to Gateshead in the National League this week. Some people keep asking me about Luka Vuskovic and how's he getting on loan? Well, the difficulty in finding that out is because he's not playing first team football at the moment. He's just not. He's just not. I don't know why I said it with that kind of disappointment. He has, I think I've written it down here, he hasn't played a single game for the first team this season. He has been on the bench 6 times, I think it is, in the league. But he is only 16. We've got to remember that. People understandably want to know how he's getting on. But yes, he is just a 16-year-old who is, the reason I'm tapping away here is I just want to double check. There was, I think, Sonny's match is tomorrow. Pat Matasar's playing tonight. Another hour or so until he kicks off against the Ivory Coast. And then tomorrow is Yves Bissouma's Mali take on Burkina Faso. So we'll know whether we get any of those three players back. Like I say, if Senegal and Mali do both win their games, they will play each other in the quarter-final at the weekend. And one of them will be coming home. And we'll see. I might ask Ange that tomorrow in the press conference whether they get a bit of rest or whether they come straight back into the team or not. Obviously, we don't want any of them to lose for their country and have despair on an international stage, but we want them back. We miss them. Brentford, Wednesday night. Like I say, press conference tomorrow. Will there be any team changes? I'm intrigued to see. You would have thought Maddison will start. Another 5 days of training. I think they need that creative spark. If he does, then Kulusevski goes in the front line. You'd imagine Brennan Johnson comes out of the team, goes on the bench. I thought Timo Werner, I think I said it in the last video, tried to make a lot of runs that didn't quite come off because people weren't spotting them. James Maddison being down that same side, I think he spots those runs. And I can imagine Werner, as long as he can stay on side, getting a lot of opportunities with Maddison's through balls. That's one. Maybe Oliver Skip comes in. Like I said, bright little cameo for him. Maybe he comes in because you've got to also remember that they've got that game and then quick succession lunchtime kickoff on Saturday. And actually, it was Guessie's suggestion. I hadn't even thought about it. Maybe Radu Dragusin comes in on Wednesday night with that kind of quick turnaround to the Everton game in mind. You've only got Thursday and Friday, and then you're playing quite early on Saturday. It is Saturday, isn't it? I'm not going mad. I should hope so because I booked the. I booked my train ticket. Yeah, it's Saturday, 12:30. But there's a train strike on at the moment, so I'm currently trying to work out how I'm going to get up there. So could you potentially give Dragusin his full debut for Spurs and start a game? Then you've got the interesting question of who comes out. Both Van de Ven and Romero haven't played tons of games in the last couple of months, obviously. Romero, do you take him out when you need his leadership? Van de Ven, do you take him out when you need his pace? It's a difficult one, but Dragusin's got to play. I do think that if you're not going to bring him in for decent money, tell him that he's going to play and then not use him in games like this when he's, you got 2 games in within it's barely even 3 days, isn't it? Because of the quick turnaround and the earlier kickoff time. So personally, I could see it. But I think I'd maybe leave Romero in. It's such a tough call because Van de Ven was brilliant against Man City and you need his pace. But do you play Romero and Dragusin together? Just have that slightly more experienced head alongside Dragusin because he is only 21 as well and it would be his full debut in the Premier League. So, let me know. Let me know in the comments who you would like to see start, what changes you'd make to the team and how you would go. But it should definitely be a much stronger bench, which is one hopefully decent side to it. Although, will it? I'm trying to think now. It depends who you get back, whether we've got anyone else that makes a sudden return, how Lo Celso's doing, whether Cess is back. We'll find out. I know Lo Celso had gone away and said that to us. He had gone, they'd let him go. I don't know whether it be to Argentina or where he'd gone, but certainly abroad to get some work, to recuperate and recover from his injury in a different environment. We'll find out tomorrow. We'll find out. There's no point me just speculating and making up a load of rubbish. Although I do make up a load of rubbish. I'm frantically double checking that nothing has suddenly broken while I'm doing these. This is the problem with these transfer window ones. It's going to take, like I say, about an hour for it to upload or so. And by the time I do that, something else could have changed. I mean, I did the one about Nusa and just saying that, we'll see if that does have any developments to it. And lo and behold, 24 hours later, he decided he was going to Brentford. It's just the way it works. It's fine. I won't cry myself to sleep at night because I know it's the nature of the game. I'm going to head off now. I think that'll probably be the last one I'm able to fit in. before the transfer window closes, and then next it will be talking about the window, seeing what they did, talking about the Brentford game, and then looking ahead to Everton as well. Don't exactly know when I'm going to fit that in, but I will try to. Might end up not being until Friday, but we'll unless I just do a bumper one on Sunday with all of it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. First world problems when you're going to fit in the YouTube video. But there you go. Right. Fingers crossed something exciting happens in the remainder of the window, but if it doesn't, I think it's been an absolutely fine January transfer window. It's been a lot better than many January windows in the past, and I think it's kind of done its job. We want to be greedy, we want more, but I won't cry if we don't. So yeah, right, time to head off. Just a shorter one this week. I don't have a big match to analyse, so you're not going to get all the match analysis that comes in a normal one. So a nice 45-minute one, which those who aren't too keen on the longer videos will hopefully appreciate. But yes, it is the match analysis that takes up a lot of the stuff. So yeah, heading off now. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Goodbye.